So we are just 2 months away, believe it or not, from the 2-year anniversary of the Nintendo Switch, which is pretty shocking when you think about it. I kind of feel like the last 2 years has seriously flown by. And in that 2 years, what we've seen from the Nintendo Switch is mostly nothing but positive things. Yeah, there are some weird, not so great things that Nintendo might be doing, like Nintendo Switch Online and all of that stuff. But as far as like the bigger picture and the overall success of the console, it's been great. We've seen a really positive, successful, and smart Nintendo, and that feels really good. In this 2 years since the Switch launched in March of 2017, we've also seen the system trounce and absolutely surpass everything that the previous console, the Wii U, did. And that's kind of what I wanted to discuss today: the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Wii U. Two really weird consoles that I think represent two very different sides of Nintendo, but as far as the concepts are also very similar. I think a lot of us would recognize, and I've discussed it on a video in the past as well, that it seems like a lot of what makes up the Switch and why it is what it is and even why it's been successful was really born out of the very concept and DNA that was the Wii U, and the fact that the Wii U was such an unfortunate failure. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I did want to have this conversation today on this video. One of the main ones is that there's actually been a pretty large conversation, more like a debate, happening with a lot of people who I even actually know, some fellow YouTubers and people on Twitter and stuff. Some conversation, some back and forth about why the Wii U was maybe better than people gave it credit for, or other people feel that maybe because the Switch is so great and delivered on the promise of the Wii U, that it shows how completely flawed and not good the Wii U was as a console. There's all sorts of different arguments there, and I think that both sides have some merit. So that's one of the things that inspired me to make this video, but also the simple fact that we're coming up on that 2-year anniversary of the Switch, and I absolutely believe that so much of what the Wii U was in its 4.5 years of life is directly responsible for the Switch and its success and Nintendo's success, and that I feel like it was a good time to discuss it because I've honestly been thinking about it for a while. So when comparing the two consoles, I think the first thing I have to state is something that a lot of you who have been around for a while already know, and it's that I love the Wii U. It is a damned great console. I don't care what any of the haters say. I don't care what the sales of the console say. When you look at it as a piece of hardware, when you look at it as a unique innovation and a quirky kind of cool controller, and when you look at the most important thing, the library of games, it's a great machine. And it's unfortunately sullied by the fact that the thing didn't sell well, and Nintendo's marketing was admittedly horrible. Their messaging from the very day that they revealed the console at E3 in 2011 all the way until the system died and then the Switch came out and erased most people's memory of it, it was terrible. Nintendo really didn't seem to understand what it was that they had and how to really sell that to not only the consumer, but I would even argue the rest of the industry and other game developers. Yes, there was strong third-party support in the beginning of the console's life based on mostly previous generation ports, but when you look at the long term, you get a year or two into the console's life, and you saw other relevant, comparable third-party games coming to the PS4 and Xbox One that weren't coming to the Switch. That is when I think you see the third-party support fall apart for the Wii U, not in the first year, but in all the years after that, with games that were also releasing on the PS4 and Xbox One. You realize that Nintendo seemed to not understand how to convince a lot of other developers to make games for this machine and find a way to tap into the power it did have available, even if it didn't match up with the competition, and, most importantly, take advantage of that controller. That being said, yes, I love the Wii U, and I think it's a very, very excellent console from Nintendo. One of my favorites of the past couple of years, I think, across the entire industry. But we then look at the Nintendo Switch, and I gotta tell you, the Switch is pretty incredible, man. I really, really am impressed with it. And I was always excited from the day they showed it, from the day it went from the NX to the Nintendo Switch in October of 2016. I was like, okay, I'm on board. It's strange. I hope that it's dual screen like the Wii U was, but even if it's not, I'm excited to see what this is going to be. Plus, it's going to have Zelda, and that's going to be amazing. So I was never a naysayer, but now that it's been in my hands for 2 years and we have so many games to play on this console, I'm really appreciating what the Switch is, man. And I don't care that it can't necessarily do some of the insane graphical things that the PS4 and Xbox One can do. None of that stuff bothers me, man. I love the fact that it allows true portability. I like the idea of the Joy-Cons and the few games that have used them semi-well so far. I think that we could use some more of that, actually, but That being said, and I just think that it's a really great console, and the library has been stellar as far as first-party stuff and even third-party support. It's been pretty strong so far, so I'm feeling great about the Switch. And so I think it's worth saying, for me, if I was to right now, with the entire life of the Wii U behind me and 2 years of the Switch behind me as well, if I had to pick which console I prefer or think is maybe the better Nintendo machine, I think I would have to say the Switch. And it's not because of sales, and that's an important thing. So many people want to put all of the value on a console, and specifically in the Wii U conversation, they want to put all the value or lack of value on the Wii U based on sales. And I think that that is a completely boneheaded way to approach it. I'm not saying you can't dislike the console. Like, no one has to like or dislike any video game or video game console. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. But when the conversation that you have revolves specifically around the sales because no one bought it, I mean, it's true, but I don't think that that says much. There's been a lot of great consoles in the past that really traditionally didn't sell well. I happen to think the Sega Saturn was a pretty great machine. I think it only sold 9 or 10 million units. The Dreamcast, famous for being an unloved and forgotten great machine. Most people know it's a great machine today, but when that thing was out, no one was buying it. And I think it also sold less than 10 million units. Which is, by the way, both of those consoles less than even the Wii U did at 13.5 million. And so I think it's important to note that the numbers part of the success of these consoles, to me, really isn't a factor when you look at the quality. Because to me, the quality is the hardware good, is the controller solid, and is the library strong. Those are the things that make a difference to me. And I'm someone who thinks that that's true for both the Wii U and the Switch. But I do still prefer the Switch, and I think it's because while the Wii U gave us a promise of kind of this portable sort of, I don't know, pick up anywhere you want to go within your house kind of gameplay, the Switch took that to the next level and actually delivered true portable gaming that's also home console gaming. Also, I think when you look at the entire library of the Wii U and how strong I think its library is, when you look at the whole 4.5 years of its life, I would argue that only 2 years into the Switch's life, it's pretty much matching or maybe even slightly surpassing that which was on the Wii U. And that's saying a lot because the Wii U had some incredible games, man. Super Mario 3D World, Bayonetta 2, The Wonderful 101, Pikmin 3, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Hyrule Warriors, Zombie U, Super Mario Maker, Super Smash Bros., Xenoblade Chronicles X, Yoshi's Woolly World, and honestly, the list goes on and on. But obviously, as we know, the Switch has been killing it in the first couple of years, both first-party Nintendo content and third party, like I've already said, and we've got so many great games to go coming up in 2019. We know that Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem and Pokemon and another Yoshi game is coming. Luigi's Mansion 3, holy crap. Obviously, Bayonetta 3, Metroid Prime 4, all of these huge games still to come. And so, for me, I think it's also that at the end of the day, when I think the Switch's life has completely run its course and we've moved on from the Switch, whenever that happens, I think we'll be looking at a console whose library dwarfs the quality of the Wii U's. There is another tricky element to this conversation, though, and it's the innovation piece of it. And whenever you talk about Nintendo and their hardware, yes, their gameplay, but more in the hardware conversation, a lot of times you end up having to factor in innovation because that's what Nintendo has shined at over the last couple of decades, and it's easily my favorite quality about them, and I think for most people who like Nintendo, it's one of their favorite things about them too. Because not many companies show that they really care enough to try these crazy things and take the big risks and big gambles like Nintendo. The Wii and the Wii U are perfect examples, and they actually are great examples because they cover two polar extremes. The Wii was a humongous gamble at the time, sacrificing power and HD graphics for a cheaper console with this innovative new motion control waggle thing. And they bet basically their whole company on that concept working. And it worked out in spades, probably better than they assumed. And it became like it's like the third best-selling console or piece of hardware like of all time right now. Third or fourth or something insane. Maybe even second, but I think if you throw in like the DS family, I think it's actually the third. Incredibly successful. I mean, it really did so much for Nintendo and made them a lot of money. The Wii U, on the other hand, was a similar gamble in a similar direction by changing the way that the player controls and interfaces with their console in their video game with the gamepad, but of course that became their least best-selling hardware ever except for like the Virtual Boy. And so we really saw Nintendo willing to take those risks and put their entire company on the success of the Wii, and then put most of their company's success on the back of the Wii U. Not so much because the 3DS was so strong at that point that it really carried them through the Wii U years, but it still was a huge gamble, and it was the front-facing kind of console, I think, for Nintendo for 4 years, and that's what they had to do. That's what they had to show the world they could do, was make a Wii U and a gamepad and try to tell everyone, this is a great way to play, so please buy our machine and play our games, because what we've made for you is awesome. Now, I've said in the past, I think around a year ago, that I think the Nintendo Switch is probably Nintendo's greatest innovation, at least in the last 20 years. I firmly believe in the quality of the concept of the Switch and the fact that it absolutely delivers on that promise 100%. Because it obviously could have been something that they promised us, but that fell flat. And the very idea and the concept and the ease of use of playing on your home console and your TV or portable on the go by picking it up and docking it, it could have just not really worked or been seamless and kind of broken the very nature of the console. But they delivered. And so I think that it is an amazing innovation and a game changer for gaming. I think it's the best innovation that they made since creating the analog stick with the Nintendo 64. That being said, all the praise that I can heap on the Nintendo Switch as a concept and an innovation, something I think that I have to say about the Wii U, and I've said this before as well, is that to me, I do still kind of prefer and miss the promise of the gamepad. I love dual screen gaming. I think it's an incredible way to play a video game when you're playing on your TV. Just like I love the DS for having 2 screens, I thought the concept of the Wii U was even better and even cooler. And I think the handful of games, I would probably say 5 to 15 games that released on the Nintendo Switch, first and third party, that took great advantage of the Wii U's gamepad and really sold me on the concept of dual screen gaming, are some of the most fun, unique, innovative, and badass gaming experiences I've had in 20 years. I think of games like Zombie U, Rayman Legends, Pikmin 3, Deus Ex Human Revolution, The Wonderful 101, Super Mario Maker, Star Fox Zero, and quite a few others. Those games really changed the way that I looked at the Wii U, and I get that, a common complaint and a common joke and insult that people will throw towards the Wii U is, especially nowadays after the Switch is launched, people will say that the gamepad is like a Fisher-Price toy and it's just this cheap, dumb, plasticky thing, and it's just like a baby's toy. It's not really a good controller. And it's like, okay, I get it, because it is a big, bulky thing, and it does have a little bit more of a less techie vibe to it than what the Switch is. But let's be real, the Switch is the hardware itself, whereas the Wii U's gamepad was basically a streaming signal receiver, right? I mean, the Wii U was the console and the hardware, and it would send a gameplay signal of what to display on the screen on the gamepad, which is also why it's light. It should also be noted, it's a lot more comfortable than the Switch, by the way. I love the Switch, but the gamepad feels better in my hand for sure. Partly because it is bigger than the Joy-Cons. And so I get that people will make that complaint, but to me, when you look at the actual gameplay functionality that it gave and the many games that delivered on that on the Wii U, it's hard for me to not really consider that when I think about the legacy of the Wii U and how much I love it. And yes, the Switch is an amazing innovation and Nintendo knocked it out of the park, but I think they also succeeded on the concept of the gamepad, and some games utilize that. I think that what really hurts the Wii U is when you look at the entire 4.5 years of the console, and you look at the full library, even some of the great games, maybe not enough games took advantage of that gamepad. And Nintendo had a lot of crazy ideas with Nintendo TV and the video camera for chatting and the Google Maps thing and Miiverse and all these cool things that were really integral to the gamepad experience. And they didn't also fully deliver on those. I think that they didn't try hard enough. They weren't aggressive enough with it. I think they were afraid to make people have to use the gamepad after the first year or so. And that's probably one of the things that hurts the console as well. But I love the gamepad. I love dual screen gaming. I think one of the coolest ways to play a video game. And I know that I'm alone here, which surprises me, but for me, when I'm playing a game and I've got my huge, beautiful TV and I'm playing something and I can look down and have stuff to manage in my hand, and I'm doing this and I'm throwing it up to my character here and I'm taking it down and I'm looking through the map, the games that did this stuff well, many didn't do this well, but the ones that did this well, it's so cool to me. It's so immersive. It really brings me into the game in a different way. I can't say enough about how much I loved dual screen gaming. And again, as much as I love the Switch and its full portable nature, I miss the dual screen aspect. And I wish that there was a way for the Switch to have also done that. And, when the Switch was first showed off in that October 2016 trailer I mentioned earlier, I remember getting kind of excited because I thought that it was also possibly still going to be a dual screen experience that was just also truly portable, not the half-assed portable that the Wii U was. Because remember, when we saw that trailer, you guys, all we saw was just some sort of box that the Switch was sitting in, and then somebody would take it out of the box. We didn't know what that box was for quite a while. So for all we knew, and I thought the hardware was in the dock. I didn't know the dock was just an empty piece of plastic that was a pass-through for the Switch to play on the TV. And so I was like, cool, man, you're going to be able to do dual screen and now take it on the go anywhere in the world. It's going to be the most amazing thing. And I definitely was a little bit disappointed when I learned that it wasn't capable of dual screen gaming. I like that it's a touchscreen, but there's less reasons to use the touchscreen because it's not dual screen. You have to use only the screen on the Switch. And so it's not that that's like a bad thing. It's not necessarily a negative to the Switch, but what it does do is make me realize I missed the innovation that was the Wii U's gamepad. So at the end of the day, this video isn't about me telling you which console you should like and which console is factually better. That's not how I roll. I mean, most people are going to say the Switch anyway, because, hey, even like I said, I think it's the better console as well. But I do think that it's important to maybe give the Wii U its credit that it's due, and take note of the things that it did do well, take note of the fact that it was the first step in Nintendo getting to the Nintendo Switch, because obviously they first had the idea of the Switch when they created the Wii U and its gamepad, and to acknowledge that it had a really strong library, and I honestly think it's going to go down as a well-loved machine down the road, similar to the Dreamcast. Maybe another 5 or so years, I think people are going to start realizing the Wii U was a great console. It had a great library. There are games and experiences that only really truly work and make sense and are the best on the Wii U simply because of the gamepad. Not as many games as I think there should have been, to be fair, but there are some. And I think that people will look back on that library of games and say, man, there was so much great stuff on the Wii U. Too bad it didn't sell so well, you know? So, again, this isn't about telling you a factual way to believe things. It's just kind of my opinion and my approach. I wanted to share the fact that while I prefer the Switch, and I think it's going to be the better console when all things are said and done, 10, 15 years down the road from even today, I think the Wii U deserves a lot of credit. I don't want it to be this forgotten sort of bastard console that Nintendo made, because it's a good machine with great games and a cool controller, man, like I said many times in this video. So this is just kind of my random thoughts on the idea of the Switch versus the Wii U, because I thought it was an interesting conversation. And again, we're coming up on that 2-year anniversary of the Switch, man. And what a 2 years it's been. And year 3 is going to be insane. I cannot flip and wait. So that's what I have to say about that. Please share your thoughts on this below. What do you think of the Switch versus the Wii U? Are you a Wii U hater? Are you a Wii U supporter? Or are you somewhere in the middle and you don't even really care because all video games are good video games? Whatever you think, share that below, and that is going to be it for me today. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob from Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.